talk about Turkish Airlines as well as the development of aviation sector in Turkey and what we have done in Italy since our start of the operations back in 1959. When we talk about the development of air transport in Turkey, we'd like to talk about, from back in 2000s up until today. We would like to demonstrate how much of a growth that the Turkish domestic aviation sector has grown. If you look at the numbers comparing to 2003 versus 2018, we have increased the number of aircraft from 162 to 515. The passenger number has grown more than 5 times, from 30 million to 154 million. Likewise, the revenue in Turkish liras has doubled 36 times over the years, and the number of airports has actually grown from 26 to 56. And when we look at the passenger numbers, the number of world averages and the number of growth that we put in Turkey has actually also demonstrated the pace of growth that we've had in Turkey. The number of travelers back in 1995 in the world was about 1.3 billion. It has increased over 3 times during this period, but the number of passengers in Turkey has actually increased almost 8 times. And at the same time, when you look at the numbers from 2019 for the future forecast up until 2023, the world's numbers is expected to grow by only 1.2 times, but in Turkey we're expecting even further than that, and 154 million to 240 million passengers. That's the expectation for Turkish numbers. Also, when you look at the domestic and international passengers numbers in Turkey, this is the Turkey numbers in total, not Turkish Airlines numbers. Turkish Airlines numbers are also included in these figures. The number has grown from 30 million passengers to 154 million passengers from 2003 until 2018. But maybe more importantly, the ratio of domestic versus international, if you go back, let's say, to 2005, 2006, when you look at the domestic numbers versus international numbers, we now carry a lot more international passengers, which is also very important, and we are currently ranked number 17 in the world. This is a graph that demonstrates the growth of aviation sector in the world. Aviation as an industry follows the economic activity. When economy grows in one region, the aviation activity organically follows. Up until 1960s, it has been growing towards the West, and the Western economies are actually growing a lot faster than the Eastern economies. So aviation activity followed, and it reached its peak back in 1960s. But after that, it started to shift back to East, and when you check the numbers now, it's growing a lot faster towards the East. The countries like India, like China, Pakistan, including Turkey and all the Middle Eastern countries, the pace of growth has actually outclassing the pace of growth in the West. So this trend is expected to continue in the future towards the East. So the aviation is going to grow a lot bigger and faster in the East side of it. And when talking about a growth in the East side, obviously we have to mention the new airport in Istanbul, which has recently commenced operations back in April 2019. In its first phase, it's got the capability of carrying handling about 90 million passengers. But once all the phases are completed, it will have 6 runways, and it will have the capacity to handle 200 million passengers per annum. So it is still, we currently have 2 runways. The 3rd runway is under construction, and it will be available by mid next year. And once all the phases are completed, 200 million, and you can see the numbers. The cargo capacity will increase quite significantly, and it will contribute almost 5% to the GDP of Turkey. 2025. And the airport, the big airport, big numbers, as you can see, 1.3 million square meters of terminal space. It's the biggest terminal building in the world under a single roof, more than 500 booking points, 143 boarding bridges. As a comparison, we had about 42 boarding bridges in the previous Atatürk airport. So this airport has actually physically more than 100 gates compared to the old one, which wasn't a small airport, by the way. And 500 plus parking positions, so it's gigantic in every sense. Also talking about Istanbul, our home, our base, Istanbul has, a natural geographical advantage which allows Turkish Airlines to deploy a lot of flights into a very highly densely populated, area within the green circle with narrow-body aircrafts. This allows us to have operational flexibility by offering more frequencies into even smaller destinations, which allows us, to reach more passengers and increase our market share. The outer circle is the range of the wide body. By the way, those circles are getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year. With the advancements in technology, the aircraft manufacturers are building aircrafts that are more capable of flying even longer distances. In the very very near future, there will almost be no place on the planet that cannot be reached by a single non-stop flight from Istanbul. So we await for those developments to arrive, and within that green circle, there is a population of about 2 billion people. That's very important. You cannot get 2 billion people inside that green circle if you were to, center that somewhere else in the world, maybe like Australia. So more people means more passengers that can be flown around. After talking about the development of Turkish aviation sector, maybe I should also briefly give you an update about Turkish Airlines. We are a group of 14 companies, subsidiaries generating over 19 billion US dollars in annual revenue. We have almost 30,000 employees under the Turkish Airlines brand, but as a group we employ more than 66,000 people under those 14 subsidiaries. And our passenger growth numbers, back in 2003 we were carrying about 10 million passengers. Last year we've carried more than 75 million passengers, and it is more than 3 times better than the world average. And the calculated annual growth rate is in between 2008 and 2018 is about 12.8%. That's also a very significant figure. And again, if you look at the domestic versus international split, back in 2006, for instance, we carry more domestic passengers than international passengers. It has now shifted, towards a more international, ground. We currently have a fleet of, as you can see, 344 aircrafts. On top of that, we also have 204 more aircraft orders that are firm orders that is expected to be delivered in the next 5 years. So we are expected to cross the 500 aircrafts mark within the next 4 years. And currently, we are the 10th largest fleet in the world in terms of number of aircraft. So that constitutes currently of about 225 in narrow body, 96 in wide body, and a 23 aircraft for the cargo operations. So as you can see, we are the airline that flies to more countries than any other airline, with 126 countries and 316 destinations served. So that's a lot of countries. And if you look at the number in Africa, we currently have 59 destinations. If you go back like 5-6 years, that number was about 20 destinations. 10 years ago, it was around about 10. So we are not only growing in Europe or in Asia, that our growth strategy pretty much covers all the geographical locations all across the globe. And this year we've opened up Mexico City, Cancun, Denpasar in Bali, Luxor, Strasbourg, Sharjah, Marrakesh, and in December we're opening up Rovaniemi in Finland as a winter destination. And if you look at what our future projections are, in 2023 we expect to carry 120 million passengers, try to generate around about $30 billion of gross revenue as a group, and as I mentioned before, we expect to have more than 500 aircraft in the fleet. And coming back to our Italian operations, we launched our first flight to Rome from Ankara back in 1959, and since then we have been running our operations uninterruptedly. And actually, to recap that historical event, in January we've relaunched the direct flight from Ankara to Rome that is still ongoing. We currently cover 8 cities, as you can see, on the map, with more than 140 frequencies every week. And last year we carried about 1.64 million passengers in Italy. We expect to carry slightly more this year, and hopefully, again, we'll try to increase the number of passengers carried next year in the Italian market. And that's pretty much all that I wanted to say. Thank you for listening, and good afternoon.